Thank you to everybody who is sitting in on this. So this presentation is titled Intro to AI with Azure and Office 365. And the purpose behind it is to kind of give you some ideas of some of the things you can do with AI in the office using Azure Cognitive Services and some of the other services that are available to you. So a little bit about myself. I am a solution architect. I work in the Philadelphia area. I'm the organizer of another user group, Tri-State Office 365 user group. We meet the second Tuesday of the month, every month. I organize M365 Philly Virtual as one of the SharePoint Saturday events. And we just announced, I believe it was yesterday, that May 14th and 15th are going to be the next dates for our event. And then I blog occasionally on SharePointLessons.wordpress.com. I'm trying to pick it up a little bit more. I have a goal of doing 24 posts this year, so we'll see. I do have 50 something in the drafts, and let's see if I actually write them. And then if anybody's interested in syncing up with me, my LinkedIn information there is at the bottom, and my Twitter handle is right there as well, SharePointJR. All right, so this is going to be all demo pretty much. So what we're going to talk about are what Azure Cognitive Services are and what's available to you. And then we're going to dive right into the demos. We're going to look at text analytics, specifically sentiment analysis. We're going to look at computer vision, which is it's like image recognition. We're going to talk about language understanding, and that's kind of like chatbots and stuff. And then we will jump into some of the products that are available in M365, Power Virtual Agents and AI Builder. So quite a lot to cover, and I'm just going to dive right into the demos. We're going to look at the very first demo, which is holding on for dear life right now. This demo kind of busted on me right before the call, and it seems to be running right now. And I'm afraid to hit pause or anything on the solution here. So the first demo is the text analytics demo. It's sentiment analysis. And the reason I built this one years ago. So at work, we got an email, and the tone. There were a couple of different opinions about the tone of the email. It was an innocent email. It was just, telling us to do something. But some people, didn't. They thought the tone was a little harsh for some reason. So I thought, it'd be cool if we can come up with a demo where we use the AI services to look at your email and score it for its positivity before you hit the send button. So I ended up building an Outlook add-in, and we can walk right through it here. So it's very simple. And actually, let me take a step back here. I want to show you a couple of things. So let's go to the Azure Cognitive Services site. And let's just talk a little bit about the services before I dive into the demos. I got a little bit ahead of myself, got a little excited about the demos. So the AI services fall into these buckets. There used to be an additional one in here, but you can see there's decision, and in decision you have anomaly detectors, content moderator, and some other services there. Under language, you have language understanding. As I mentioned, it's like chatbots. Q&A Maker is also a chatbot service. It's really what it sounds. You give it a series of questions and answers, and the bot, if someone types a question that is very similar to the one that you provided it, it will spit out that answer for the person. It's good for like knowledge bases and things like that. Then there's the text analytics, and that's the first demo we're going to look at. Then you have speech services, so speech to text, text to speech, speaker recognition, which I haven't tried. And then you have the vision services. You have computer vision, which would pull out like tags and information about things that it finds in an image or a video, it looks like now. Face detection, form recognizer, and so on. There used to be a fifth one in here. There were search services. So it was a lot of the things like the Bing, the AI services that are available with Bing. If you ever go on Bing, specifically on the mobile, but I believe you also have it on the web app. There's an icon for a camera. You can click on that and then use the camera on your phone to take a picture of something, and it'll do an image search for that. So those are some of the AI services that are available. So when you're setting up these services, it's actually pretty simple. You can do it right in Azure, and you're going to do a search for cognitive services, and it'll take you here. Now, I'm not going to go through the full process of creating one of these services, but it's really not a lot of steps to go through. This is my work tenant, so I don't want to spin up anything. So you create a service, and then every time I go through these demos, something's different. So I popped through on this site last night, and there were a lot of additional services that I hadn't seen before. So you could see when you go to create a cognitive service, you have bot services up here. You have cognitive services, which are the ones that I'm interested in here. You have machine learning services, automated ML, robotic process automation, which is the demo that I was working on this morning that broke my first demo. Data labeling, and so on, knowledge mining. There's a lot of different things in here, a lot of third-party things in here. What we're interested in is the cognitive services. And if I click on see more here, there is a ton of stuff in here. There used to not be this much in here, and there's several pages. So let's see. I know the filter's a little funny, but you can see the speech to text. This is not a Microsoft one. Let's take a peek at a Microsoft one. Here goes the Microsoft ones. Here's text analytics, speech, Q&A maker, personalizer, and there's more. The text analytics one is the one in the first demo. And it's generally the same steps for each of the services that you pick. So you hit create, and then you just fill out this form. You pick your resource group, what region you want it to be deployed to, the name of your service, and your pricing tier. They have a free tier, which you can try out. I think you can only try like 1 or 2 services with the free tier, and then it locks you out, so you have to delete the service and go back. But then they have some standard ones in here as well. So once you create your service, the next page that it takes you to is just a single page that has a couple of steps. It's typically 3 steps. The first step, it gives you the keys. Basically, it's how you get the permission to use the service. The second section is the endpoint, which is a URL that contains whichever region you deployed your service to. And then the last section of the page is really the instructions on how to use the service. So, once you or an admin, someone who has the permissions in Azure, sets this up and completes it, they'll give you the key and the URL or the endpoint, and you're good to go. So back to the code. Once I had that text analytics service available, I created an Outlook add-in, and in here you could see all I'm doing is I'm getting an item from the mailbox. And whoops, And I clicked on the wrong thing. Let me go back to my. I'm getting my mailbox item. In this case, it's a new message that I'm composing. And I'm taking the body of the message and I'm passing it to a function. That's all I'm doing here. So in here, I have this calculate sentiment function. Now, the directions that they gave you, and I don't know if it's different now, that it's been a while since I've done this particular service. So it might be different now, but they gave you the instructions and they said, this is basically the format that you want to provide it. You want to give it a language, an ID, the body of your message, or the thing that you want to score for positivity. In my case, it's the email message. And then you want to wrap it with documents. So this is just wrapping this content in here. So once you structure your data, I have a function here that's just returning the GUID, the key that the admin would have given me. And then this is the endpoint that the admin would have given me. And again, it's the same for everybody pretty much. The region and then the rest is standard. And then the instructions just tell you what you need to provide. So here's the header with the key that I provided for security reasons. And then the data that you're passing it, which is the message that we just built. And then down here, I'm just kind of looping through the messages and I'm scoring it. We'll talk about that in a second, but the score is coming from the service. And generally, the way these services work, they usually give you some content, and there's always like some sort of confidence score. So that's what's being returned here is the confidence score. And then I pass the score down to the chart, and the chart is just creating a chart in Outlook. So if we go take a look at the, so this is Outlook, and here is a new message that I'm trying to compose. And let's see, my Visual Studio update almost my demo. Let's see. You can see, so this is the solution that I just deployed. And right now it's like side loaded. It's not actually deployed out there, but it's available. And it scores it, and you can see that it wasn't a very positive message, so 20%. Now I could also say the demo went great, and try it again. And it's a much more positive message. Now, since it was a demo, I didn't go through and refine it. And I think what's happening is I'm only getting like the last sentence and scoring that one versus doing some sort of an aggregate. But yeah, it was just proof of concept, and I was able to use the service to score a message. Right? So pretty simple. So demo number 2 is image recognition. Again, on the Azure side of things, you just go to you just find the service for image recognition, computer vision, and you set it up. You get the keys, you get the endpoint. And what I'm going to do in this demo, I'm going to upload some images, and it's going to automatically tag and caption those images for me. And the use case for this one, it was a demo that I was doing for a customer. They had a few hundred locations across the US. They had a central marketing department here in Pennsylvania. And these little satellite offices, essentially, they have their own regional marketing that they do. But all of the images are managed by their central marketing at their headquarters. So they were looking into digital asset management solutions, and they asked me if there was anything that we can do in the Office 365 space. And I said, well, there are some AI services that I'm playing with. Let me give it a shot. So I went, I got a sandwich, sat down during my lunch break, and by the end of the lunch break, I had this demo put together. So it's very easy to put these things together. So I'm going to upload a few images. So these are the images that are going to go up there. And we can look at Power Automate. I'm using Power Automate for this one. We could look at what it's doing while the flow is running. So I'm going to drop these images in here. Okay, so the images are in there, and this is the image recognition flow that's running in here. And there's really not much, right? It's just a handful of steps, and actually, yeah, six steps is all you need. And the top is typical stuff that you do when you're dealing with workflows in SharePoint. So you're listening for a file to get created in a folder or document library. So I'm passing in where I'm expecting it to reside. You're getting the metadata for the file that was created in here. And then you're just getting the properties so that you can manipulate them later. This is one of the cognitive services. If you go in and add an action, you could type in, you could see here's some of the services here. So here's custom vision. If I click on custom vision, you can see some of the options that you get. And there's others. All the services are available. When you do it for the first time, it's going to ask you for the endpoint of the key. And then after that, it goes away. And for this service in particular, it's asking you what the image source is. So it's either content or a URL. I'm using the content from the file that's being created up here. And then I'm passing in that file content. Down here, I'm getting the tags. The tags come back as an array. I'm just putting them together in a string and pushing them out there as a string. You'll see what that looks like, but you probably could go through and maybe make them choices or like manage metadata or something, keywords or anything. In my case, I'm just doing a string. And then down here, it creates several captions. I'm just grabbing the last one and updating the item. So here's the ID of the item, updating the caption, updating the tags. If we go back, it should be done. And you could see they were all captioned and tagged. Let me try to make this a little bit bigger so we can see what we're talking about here. This one here is Bob Ross, the painter. Let me see. Can I get to, if you make it too big, you can't get to the info button. So let's go back. Here we go. So Bob Ross. So you can see Bob Ross here. He's doing his painting. He's painting a picture of a mountain. If we go back, you could see the service is able to identify celebrities. So it says Bob Ross standing in front of a mountain. And then the tags are just, person, man, outdoor, front, standing, mountain, water. Now, the example, the reason I built it, one of the things that they wanted, that client wanted to be able to do is they wanted their satellite offices to be able to search for images, but they weren't sure what kind of keywords they would be searching for. So the marketing team was putting in a bunch of keywords, hoping that it was things that they would search for. In this case, it would eliminate a lot of that upfront work, and then maybe you could go back and refine it. But something simple like this would have saved them probably hundreds of hours of tagging, just with all the images that they were doing for 500 schools. All right. So let's see. So that was image recognition. Or computer vision. We did text analytics. And the next thing that I want to talk about is language understanding. So this is, here is a bot. I don't know why it keeps going back to this. I'm just checking the chat here real quick. All right. Go back to my code here. All right. So here's the, this is a chat bot. So this is using the Microsoft bot framework This is also years old. This was the very first bot that I ever built. So you can see it's doing a lot of crazy stuff in here. This has actually changed since. I believe the way you develop them now is a little bit different. But this is using language understanding intelligence service. And what that service does is you feed it a sentence and it will run it against several things that you've defined. So they're called intents. So an intent is like a topic, which we'll see in another example soon. So, if you have an intent for a greeting, you would train it with things like, hi, hello, how are you? And if somebody uses any combination or something close to those, it'll give you a score and it'll say, look, it's an 80% chance that the person was trying to do a greeting. And then what happens in the code is that it'll kick it to the section that's labeled with that intent, and it'll start running the code in here. So I did there was a Pluralsight tutorial that walked you through doing a room reservation, and that's what's going on in here. But there's a couple other things like a help desk ticketing system, the room reservation, and there's some other stuff going on in here. For the room reservation, you can see that the bot takes the properties and it spits out the sentence for you. You can also put some attributes around it to write your own sentence. In fact, I believe in the hotel, the help desk, I have examples of that. So in the help desk one, these are those questions that the bot's going to ask the person. But in this particular case down here, instead of just saying, description, I have it saying, tell me about your issue. So then, you end up going through, whatever business logic you need, and you can kind of see that it's getting a little bit involved here. There's things like it's creating an item in SharePoint, it's creating a planner plan, it's setting a severity, it's trying to assign it to someone, and there's quite a lot of code in here. And I can't demo this one because I don't have the service available, but I did want to show. The reason I wanted to show it is because you can now do this through other tools that makes it a no-code solution. And what we're going to do is take a peek at that right now. So this is Power Virtual Agents. And Power Virtual Agents is essentially your chatbot service. So if I click on Go to Topics, you could see all the different topics. A lot of these were created for me. I think from here on up were the ones that I created. Yeah, from there on up is the ones that I created. And if we click on here, let's see, this one's probably the one that's running. You could see these are the types of phrases that would trigger. So I'd like to submit a ticket. I need help. I need to create a service ticket. So those examples of sentences would trigger my help desk bot. I could say, there we go, like to create a help desk ticket. So I'd like to create a help desk ticket. If we go back over here, there isn't an exact match for that. There's submit a ticket, create a service ticket, I need help. There isn't anything that says help desk ticket. So if I go in and submit that to the chatbot, you can see, and let me try to bump this up as well. You can see it starts the conversation. Now, where is this conversation starting from? If we go to the authoring canvas, you could see a flow style approach to the chatbots. So you have your trigger with your example sentences. And then right here, you can see what I'm doing. The first thing I ask it to do is send a message to the person who sent the bot question. And in here, it says, hi, I'm the help desk bot. I'm going to walk you through your ticket request. Creating these steps is pretty simple. So you could just click in there, type in your question, and then tell it what to look for. Let me discard that change. Zoom out a little bit. So the first question is provide a title for your ticket. I always say that my laptop broke. I should probably come up with something else. But can't log into an app. So that became the title, and it goes on to the next sentence, the next question. The next question is a multiple choice question, and it's asking me, what type, how would I categorize this issue? PC equipment or software issue. So I'm going to say software. I could type it in, or I can click it when it's a choice. And then what's your priority? So I'll say medium. And it wasn't case sensitive or anything like that. Last step, can you provide a brief description? Can't log into my app. Same thing as the title, right? And then the last thing it's going to do is it's going to collect all that data, and it's going to reply to the person, confirming all of the steps. And then down here, what you're going to see, I don't know if you heard those dings, but I was getting emails from the bot. And the bot was actually kicking off this flow. And then you could see it's waiting. It's getting a response from the flow, and it says your help desk ticket is number 21. So where is that? If we were to click on this, which I already went ahead and did, you could see the flow that I have going on in here. So it's expecting to be triggered by a Power Virtual Agent. It's telling it, provide these fields, and these fields we provided with the data that was captured in the previous. You could see it's these variables that I was collecting as I was asking questions. So I'm passing that to the Power Virtual Agent, or I'm sorry, to the flow. And then I'm creating an item in SharePoint using that data. I'm getting the properties. Down here, we're just doing things based on the status and sending emails. The emails will have different messages depending on the severity. So you could use that for an SLA. If it's high priority, you need to respond within the next 4 hours, and it'll alert that technician about that. If I go to my SharePoint list, what did I say? I think I said it was message number 21. So let's refresh this page here. And my very last one here is item number 21. I can't log into the app, PC software issue. So the chatbot collected the data, passed it onto a flow. The flow did all the work after that. And if we want to look at my emails, you could see a ticket was created for me. I think somewhere in here, since I'm the creator and the sender, it kind of gets a little weird, but you can see this one had the SLA in it. Medium priority item, help desk personnel must begin working on the ticket in 8 hours or less to meet the SLA. All right. So we have covered the text analytics. We've covered image recognition. We've covered language understanding. Again, just to remind everyone, the way the services work is that they score, they provide some sort of score. So for the language understanding, it's doing this is close enough, and then telling it to go down a specific path that you specify. These Power Virtual Agents are actually really simple to build. You can actually also do some conditions. So let's say I wanted to do a different set of steps. If somebody said it was a high severity, I could do a condition in here and say, if the priority is high, do these other steps. So now we went through all of those. And if anybody has any questions, feel free to ask. The next thing that I want to get into is AI Builder. So this is Power Virtual Agents. This isn't, where'd it go? The next thing is AI Builder. So AI Builder is a new service that you can access through either Power Automate or Power BI. They'll show up over here on the side if you have a subscription to it. And there's a slow here. Let me turn off my sentiment app real quick. Sorry for all the bouncing around here. So this AI service, it actually has quite a bit of different things that it can do. So there are two sections to this one. There is there are the services that you have to train yourself. So there's these 5 up here. And then down here at the bottom, these are services that are already trained for you. So the difference being that the ones on the bottom, you don't have to do anything. You can just kind of start using them right away. So you can use a business card reader, extract data from it, and post it somewhere if you want to store it next to like a list or store it in a list or something like that. Invoice processing, this one's new, I believe. There is receipt processing. So this one could be used for expense reporting. If you have a lot of expenses that, a lot of client lunches that people write off, they could scan it with their phone or upload it to a SharePoint list or wherever you want to store it, have the service run against it, and it can get some details about that. You have text recognition, sentiment analysis, which we've seen a demo of, but not necessarily in this service. And then up here, the 5 that you have are category classification, which is the example that you'll see is if you pass it a sentence, it will classify it. So one of the examples is of a spam message. It'll tell you this sentence is spam. Entity extraction, this one is a little bit more granular. So this one, it'll take a sentence and it'll identify things in the sentence. So if you have a city and a state in there, it'll highlight them as city, state. So it'll pull those keywords out for you, customer name, whatever. Form processing is the one that we're going to look at next. That one is an OCR service. What is it? Optical character recognition. So it'll pull text out of documents for you, and you can create a flow to do whatever you need it to do with that text. That's the demo that I'll do next. Object recognition is the example that you'll see is Microsoft supplies it a bunch of photos of offices, and it'll highlight exactly where the Microsoft logo shows up in that picture. It could be anywhere in the picture, it'll find it, which I'm working on a fun demo on that one. And then the prediction, I haven't gotten too far with the predictions just yet. The example that I've seen that I'm trying to recreate is if you give it some data, so let's say some sales data, it'll give you essentially a yes or no answer. So this is binary regression if you're into the whole machine learning thing. So this is if you feed it a bunch of data, it identifies a trend, and then it'll tell you yes or no based on the past trend. So like let's say you gave it a bunch of customer opportunities where you've won and lost those opportunities. If you train it with enough information, the idea is that if you give it more information moving forward, it should be able to tell you if it's a high chance that you're going to win this particular customer's opportunity, or basically yes, no's. So there's a lot of demos in the machine learning space outside of the Microsoft space where they have examples of this around like real estate information or sales information and other things. There was one demo that we were building our machine learning practice internally, and we were doing the work with Python. And one of the challenges that we had was to determine, based on the information that you had about, it's a little weird, based on the information that you had on the passengers of the Titanic, which would be things like what room they were in, what level of the ship they were on, and some other information like how likely would they have survived the Titanic. Morbid. It is a challenge that is out there and it's used often, and that one kind of came into our space. So it's those type of things. So we're going to dive into the form processing. In this one, I'm going to build a solution that will take invoices and pull data out of the invoices. So I'm going to get that rolling now. So this is my invoices library. You can see the information that I'm expecting to collect are invoice number, client name, company, service offered. I am going to take a bunch of invoices that I have over here. I'm just going to drag them and drop them over here. So the invoices don't have a lot of information. So if you wanted to find a specific invoice, you're clicking through all of these and you're digging through. So while that's kicking off a workflow in the back end, I'm going to go through most of the steps for creating this, but I'm not going to go, we'll see how far we go. So when you're building these services, they're really good about giving you examples and best practices and walking you through what you need to do. So it's not a big learning curve when you're dealing with these AI services. So you can go in here, you can see examples, and you can see they're highlighting the sections of this invoice that they want to capture. They're using mortgage statements. So when you have clear text that's typed in and things are in a specific spot that, somewhere where you're expecting it to always be, those are the best options for you. So you could see a mortgage statement here, a school application, and then your best practices are to keep the layouts consistent. Don't mix and match. Now, they did do an update recently where they give you a way to create one invoice processing service that reads multiple layouts, and we'll see that. We won't go too deep into it, but we'll at least see that. So this one, we'll call it Nova 365. Create. All right. Then it's just asking you what fields do you expect to capture. So I'm not going to do them all, but invoice number, invoice or customer name, invoice date. So those are just the three fields that I want to capture. Next. The collections that I was talking about, you can create a collection of files that have the same layout. So if you have two different invoice styles or layouts, you would create two different collections. In this case, we're just going to do the one, add the documents, upload from local storage. I believe it's going to open in the right spot. So here are my invoices. I'm going to just do these 5 because you only need to do 5 for this service. Oops. Upload. They have uploaded. I'll hit close, and then you tell it to analyze the documents. So it's just kind of going through, figuring out what things are, and then it's going to take I think it takes a crack at where things are, if I remember. We'll see in a second. And again, if you have any questions, feel free to jump in.
So I'm going to guess, Jason, that a good chunk of this is based off of usage. So could you ever find yourself, or think you'd find yourself where an employee goes in and suddenly racks up $10 million of form analyzer?
Yeah, they do have separate pricing for the different services. In fact, do I have it open here? I believe I do.
I know that's one of the quote unquote benefits to cloud is you can have it go against operational costs instead of more of your capital expenditures. But the flip side is if you don't put code in there to limit. My daughter has a lot of opinions on this too. If you don't put limits in there, all of a sudden end of the month you're like, oh no, what happened? So
yeah. Right. Yeah. So AI Builder for this plan, they have $500 a month per unit per month. Yeah, I'm a little unclear about what a unit was because at one point it seems straightforward. It says is a pack of 1 million service credits. So then what's a service credit, which is pooled at the tenant level? If you go to the estimate, you can kind of get an idea. So if you know that you get 1,000 invoices in a month on average, you can calculate and it'll say you'll be at $500 a month. If you do 10,000, you jump up to 3,500. So you do have to you do have to look at what it is you want to build, and then you have to weigh the cost. So like if it's a lot of data entry and it's time consuming and your staff can do something that is higher value with that time, then maybe it makes sense, right? If you have to, hire someone to do this work, maybe it makes sense to just automate some of this stuff. But yeah, you have to sit back and you have to think, is it really costing me? Is it really worth it for me to spend $3,500 a month to process 10,000 invoices versus having someone, have someone do it or automate it? And then it's a combination, right? So it's not just 10,000 form processes. If you're doing, 1,000 of these and 10,000 business cards or, whatever, all of that gets added up into your monthly total. I don't know. There's probably a way to set a limit. I haven't gone into the pricing too much. So, but yeah, things.
It's a good point to just remember. I think the company that I work at, when I first started, there was a requirement that we had to mail all of our receipts for any of the expense reports we had, and they've since transitioned over to more automation for these sorts of things. But to your point, for organizations that might be a little bit smaller on size, if it's 15 minutes of somebody's time to go through every couple of weeks and do these, it probably is more cost effective.
Right.
But the fact that we can go through and do this in an automated fashion is definitely cool. And for clients and customers that you work with, this can definitely come in handy to help automate a lot of those pieces for them.
Yeah. I mean, even if you're at a small organization with, like, let's say, a high-priced, high-paid person in the finance department, they might have better use of their time doing something else.
Sure.
And it might be a no-brainer for them as well. So yeah, you have to factor all that stuff in. It's cool, but it's also an expense. Same thing with Power Virtual Agents. Power Virtual Agents, they have 2,000 sessions. So if you have 2,000 conversations, you're spending $1,000 a month. So you really have to think about what it is that you want to do in here. Do you have to hire somebody to do help desk triaging? And, would it just make sense to just pay the $1,000 here versus the 40, 50, 60 grand for the salary? So $12 grand a year. It really depends. And a lot of this stuff is not to, at least the way I approach it, is not to eliminate positions. It's to either supplement the role and have them work on more important things. So these things eliminate a lot of the tedious work in the day. Obviously, there's always a gray area. And AI could in some cases eliminate the need for certain roles, but Yeah, that's every technology. Okay, so
Jason,
yes.
sorry, can I make a question? Have you tested these services on on production with a lot of data? Because I want to know a little bit more experience about the performance. Besides the price, how has been the experience on that when you have to work with a lot of data and load and
Yeah. So the image recognition stuff and the form processing, they all work pretty quickly, and they're using flow on the back end. So if anything, you have like that 5-minute delay or whatever the delay is. They're really fast. In fact, I can probably show you how quickly one of them goes when we go back to look at the forms that have processed. The chatbots and stuff, they're not slow, but it does depend on what it is you're doing in the middle, right? So if you're doing a lot of calls in the middle to other services, there could potentially be a delay depending on what it is you're trying to do. But as far as these services go, the performance has been pretty good. I haven't seen any issues with them.
Okay, thank you very much.
Sure. Okay, so we have the forms. They've been analyzed. We have the fields over here on the bottom right, and hopefully it's not too difficult to see. I'm going to try to bump it up a little more. A little less. All right. So I'm going to capture just 3 things here: invoice number, customer name, invoice date. My other services that I set up, I captured each individual field here. So customer name, company name, address, city, state, zip, phone number, all that stuff's being captured. You can also capture data in the tables. I didn't give it good data, so it kind of grabs everything in one block, but you can grab it so that it takes each individual line item, and you can potentially create like a separate table with those line items and link them back to the document. But for now, we're just going to do these 3 fields. So I have the invoice number up here. I have the invoice date, which I didn't supply here, but there's invoice date, and then the customer name. So you could do 2 things in case you didn't see that. When you hover over, it'll put a box around it. But if you have multiple things in here, like street address, the space kind of breaks it up. So you'll have to like drag and select things at times. So that's the customer name. And then you have to do it for each of the, the 5 forms that you're training. So this part gets a little tedious. I'm just going to do this really quickly. Invoice number, invoice date, customer name, number 4, invoice number, invoice date, customer name, last one, invoice number, invoice date, customer name. All right, and then you train it. This only takes a couple seconds. You can go to the models. It'll show you all the other models that I have in here. You can see it's training. Here is a trained one. I can go to a trained one. Do I want to go to a trained one? Let's go to a trained one. It's the same forms. You can see, you can do a quick test, and you can drag and drop some of the forms. So I'm going to show, actually, let me show you. So here's one form. So you can see it's analyzing. This one has more fields in it. So you can see invoice number 004. You see the confidence score says 100. Confidence score 99. Down here, confidence score 97, but you could also see that the box kind of overlaps with the company name. So that's why the number dips a little bit. If you take a handwritten one, it goes all sorts of nuts. So let's see. So you can see I was writing in an angle. Writing kind of sloppy. So up here, you could see 0 space 07, 22% confidence score around that invoice number. It spelled my last name wrong. It put an S instead of an A, 74% confident. And you know, you can see what happens if you deviate from the boundaries. So let's go back to, this is trained. I can go in here, and once you're ready to go, you just hit publish and it's ready to use. Now, in order to use it, you can go to Power Automate, and here is the flow that is using that service. It's really just 4 steps. This step here is just some like test stuff that I was using, but same as before, we're waiting for a file to get created in SharePoint. There is this predict service here, and actually let me show you AI Builder predict, and you could see all the published ones. So I just published Nova 365, and I could select it, but since that one's not a completed one and doesn't have all the fields, I use this one down here. This one's processor. You can see I'm expecting PDF files. That's the document type, and it's passing in the data from the files that get added in there. This parse was just so that I can understand what fields were available. This is not really part of the flow, but you could see it identified the address, and you could see that one of the fields, you know, there's a value for the address, a display name for the address, a confidence score for the address. So in theory, you could take that confidence score and say, you know, if it's less than 70%, email so-and-so to verify that this invoice is correct. And then down here, I'm getting the metadata for the file so that I could start updating it. And then down here, I'm taking the file and I'm getting the invoice number value from the prediction service, this one from the predict. And then, you know, client name, company name, service offered. We go back over to the library. You could see Megan Bowen's invoice is right here. Big Bird, Herman Munster, John Jacob Jingleheimer are in here as well. This is a number field, so it converted it removed the leading zeros. If it was a string, you would have seen 003, 002. And if we open one, Herman Munster here, I want you to open by yourself. Oh, that's interesting. It wants to sort of show me it.
Somebody must have deployed a new copy of the PDF reader inside of 365.
Yeah. The intern did a deployment again.
Right.
Here we go. So you can see Herman Munster, form processing service, invoice 005 on 4/11/2020. So that was invoice number, invoice number 5, Herman Munster, Munster Inc., form processing service. That's it. No code, simple workflow. Workflow had, what was it, 4 steps? 1, 2, 3, 4. And this one's not really, this one doesn't count. And that's it. And you've got an invoice processing solution in your organization. So we can wrap this up, and we got 4 minutes to spare here, it looks like. So just to recap what we kind of covered, right? We went through the Azure Cognitive Services site, and we looked at the 4 different buckets that they show on the site. Another thing I didn't mention about that site is that if you click on the different links that are there, they'll give you examples like this, so you could see they submitted this to the image recognition service, and it's identifying things. So there's 76% chance that it's highlighting a person here. It is 99% confident that this box here is a train. And you can kind of see some of the other things that it's pulling in here, some of the tags and other things that are being shown. We saw the text analytics, specifically sentiment analysis, where we scored the positivity of a message and then gave you a score there. You can use this for things like moderating content, or one example that I did a while back was I pulled a bunch of tweets for a specific hashtag. I populated it into a SharePoint list, and then I put the sentiment score next to it. So that allowed me to identify if somebody was negatively tweeting about a business or a product or whatever. We saw a computer vision service where we saw the tagging, the automatic captioning and tagging of these images. We saw that it identifies celebrities in here, and in here you could see that there's a few misses. Right there, it says eating. Bob Ross was not eating anything in there, so you'll have some misses. I had a picture of my daughter once, and she was sitting in a high chair, and the design of the high chair in the back had these triangles that were being identified as pizza, and she had her tray in front of her that was being identified as identified as a plate. So it's not perfect, but if you need a volume of tagging, it's actually pretty good. We saw 2 flavors of chatbots: the bot framework and the Power Virtual Agents. We saw AI Builder, specifically the form processing service, and we talked about some of the other models that are available there for training, as well as some of the models that are there for just immediate consumption. And then if you want any more information about any of these things that we looked at, azure.microsoft.com, services, cognitive services, where you'll get an overview of what each of the services does. Dev.botframework.com if you're into the developer side of things. And then, powervirtualagents.microsoft.com and powerapps.microsoft.com/AI Builder, AI-Builder. It's where you'll get information about those other specific services, and including things like pricing. And then last slide, I've written, if you go to sharepointlessons.wordpress.com, I've written articles walking you through how I built all of these things. Oddly enough, the one that was causing me issues at the top of this presentation also is causing me issues on that blog post. The formatting of it for some reason got weird. There's a bunch of HTML in there, but sentiment analysis in the Outlook add-in, tagging and captioning images using AI Builder's form processing. It's a 2-parter. And then the sentiment analysis with the tweet. I actually forgot that one was on here. And that's it. The end.
Sweet. So Jason, thanks for sharing kind of your knowledge there. I guess quick question for those that are stuck with us. Any questions or thoughts of how you guys might be able to make use of some of the AI features? And if not, no worries. But Meredith, I see you coming off mute, so I will be silent.
Just curious about the GCC availability.
So that I do not know. I would imagine it's not available for GCC, just because that's how they go. That's a great question. I do not know the answer to that.
Okay, I do know that AI Builder is not available in GCC. I checked this morning for something else, but I was wondering, if any of the other nifty things you showed us was available.
Yeah.
Alas.
Yeah, GCC. I don't know, but
Okay.
it's funny because there's usually a specific schedule for when GCCs get certain things, and then there's just other things where it's like, nah. So, yeah.
Yeah, Meredith, I know on the cognitive services side of things, I want to say some of them are out there, but as Jason mentioned, sometimes the lead time, like you'll see something in commercial, and then 6 months to a year later, it'll pop up over in GCC.
And then you have to fight with your clients to license it.
Well, I think it goes back to kind of what Jason was mentioning about whether or not it, the juice is worth the squeeze. So if there's a feature functionality that you've got or you're looking for that is available and doesn't necessarily cause a huge impact to kind of the workflow that you've got, there could be some benefit to making use of it. Caveat if it's like you mentioned, figuring out how to help them determine how to pay for something in and of itself is its own ball of yarn to go and untangle. But it'll likely get there. It's more just a question of timing.
Yeah, no, I know. I see some applicability for my clients, and I get frustrated because they're in GCC, and God forbid they're in GCC high. That's even longer wait. So it's just more about, I'd really like to use this for something.
Yeah, there's some information out there. AI Builder is currently not available for GCC. So.
Yeah, it's at some point. But yeah, I think Meredith, your best bet is if you go and use DuckDuckGo and look up Azure products available by region, and that'll give you a rundown of when or if something is available. So some of the cognitive services do have capabilities out there. It's more just, I think, to your point, the Azure government side only has a handful, so it's not necessarily everything.
Got it. Thank you.
Okay. Not wanting to have awkward pauses, which are always fun. If there are questions out there, definitely feel free to reach out to Jason. Like you mentioned on Twitter, SharePoint JR. And Jason, we really do appreciate you coming out today. Hopefully your shoveling goes well with the car in the snow. But really do appreciate you giving us kind of a rundown and overview. So thank you so much.
Thanks for having me.
Cheers.